Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5. We will be covering 2 modules in week 5, module 10 and 11. So, this podcast goes over module 10, in which we will be covering chapter 11, the nature and symptoms of pain. So, here is the to do list for this module. Let's jump into what your objectives are for the chapter. So, again, just want to reiterate, heavy on the reading. I had a couple of emails, questions about concepts in the reading, which is awesome. So again, as you're working your way through the chapter, if you get stuck on something and you need help and you need explanation, please feel free to reach out with an email, and I'd be happy to chat with you or email you back or whatever your preference is to get in contact with you. Most of the material is pretty self-explanatory. This isn't the kind of class that's super complex or complicated. However, a lot of these concepts can be new, and just understanding some of the intricacies between different theories or different models. Sometimes it's just helpful to have that little bit of explanation. So let's talk about the nature and symptoms of pain. You're going to start the chapter off with understanding how pain differs. So not all pain is created equal, and people feel pain even differently. It's very individual. It's a concept that's very connected to how we think, how we feel, how we process even emotion, our experiences. So we talk about the biopsychosocial model, and that is just a really great example of how we can look at pain through that type of a model. So first thing is going to be talking about the different qualities of pain. So that is, how do we describe pain? So the ways in which pain may differ based on where it's coming from and what it is and what the underlying cause of the pain could be. And that's when we start getting into the different dimensions of pain. We'll compare and contrast organic versus psychogenic pain. Here's where we typically think of pain that's more physical, musculature, nerve pain that has an organic basis versus psychogenic pain, which can be connected to, just like it sounds, your psyche. So here's where pain can be made more intricate based on how we think and feel. And a lot of times things can trigger pain. So if we think back to like the chapter on stress, we learn how much stress can upset our body physiologically, how it causes all sorts of reactions within our endocrine system, which is releasing hormones to aid in pain and pain experience, to our cardiovascular system, where there's stress on the heart when dealing with either physical or emotional pain, and that's where the term heartbreak comes from. And so we'll be looking at the differences between those. Also, the differences between what's considered acute versus chronic pain. So our short-term pain that we recover from after a given period of rest or remedy, and then the more longer lasting chronic pain that can be intermittent and even lifelong, and can be much more complex. We'll examine the factors involved in chronic pain. So, it is complex. There are different kinds of chronic pain. There are different origins of chronic pain. So we'll take a look at how people describe the various types of chronic pain. We'll also look at the physiology of pain perception. So what is going on in your body when it is giving and receiving a pain signal? What does that look like? What is sort of the feedback loop for perceiving pain sensation and your brain processing or interpreting what that pain means. So again, here's where pain can be very individual. You have a physical ailment, let's say, a cut on your arm, but then one's interpretation of that cut might dictate the magnitude with which they feel that pain experience. If I look down and I see blood and that freaks me out, I may get myself really worked up, and so I experience pain at a much greater magnitude than if I'm just used to blood and I look down and go, oh, okay, it's no big deal. Let me wrap it up, and it hurts a little bit, but it'll be okay. So how we perceive pain can often dictate our entire experience of it. We'll also look at what it means to have pain without detectable body damage, as in phantom limb pain, and that is an interesting phenomenon that a lot of amputees experience, the absence of a limb that has been amputated, but still they feel the presence of that limb that's no longer there. They feel the pain of that limb. So we'll take a look at why and how that happens, which then will carry us into some different theories about pain and how we experience it. We'll look at gate control theory of pain and the neuromatrix theory of pain, which is a little more complex and involves nerve pain. Then we'll look at how we treat and process pain. So identifying how opiates and opioids can work in pain, looking at how learning is involved in the association of pain. So, learning is very much a part of so much of this class and what we've talked about. We just finished the chapter on diet and exercise and eating, and we know that a lot of what we do is learned. Our habits when it comes to exercise and nutrition are very much learned from how we were raised, what's reinforced, what is not. And so this is also how we begin to form some associations related to pain, and how we socially process pain. If you come from a family that makes a big deal out of a paper cut, you're going to have a very different pain experience than if you come from a family that, you fall and break your leg and your parents are like, oh, rub some dirt on it. Those are very extreme examples, but, there's everything in between there, and that can affect how a person is going to process pain. We'll also look at some sociocultural factors that are involved with pain, things like gender and culture and age. These are demographic variables about the person that can alter how a person perceives and processes pain. We'll also look at how emotions and coping factor into pain response and pain perception. And then also, how do we assess and measure pain? What ways exist today for doctors, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists to accurately assess one's pain and measure it? What are the pros and cons of the different assessment measures, and how do we use them? So there's many different kinds. There's self-reported measures of pain. There's behavioral measures of pain, like what can you do, what can you not do? And then there's psychophysiological measures of pain, like how do you think about your pain? How are you processing it, emotionally, right? So one might use all of those measures, actually, in order to get a complete sort of picture of a person's pain. Also take a look at pain specifically within children, because definitely there's some special considerations there that involve both sensory and cognitive development, due to, a child's in ability to maybe process the meaning behind pain, or have maybe the words for it. If you're in pain as an adult, you can say what's hurting, you can describe how it's hurting. A child might not be able to do that. And so we have to take into consideration some special circumstances there with kids and be able to find ways to uniquely assess a child's pain. And then that leads us into some specific reasons why it is so hard to assess pain in children. A lot of times children mask their pain because they don't know how to talk about it. They don't know exactly what they're feeling. And so it can manifest in all different kinds of ways. So health psychologists in particular are very acute at assessing children. There's even, health psychologists who specialize in children's pain, like a child oncologist would be one of those who deals with cancer in children and dealing with that with the family. And we'll actually be taking a look at that, specifically that job role, a little later in one of the later chapters. Okay, so that kind of sums up the chapter. I have the McGill Pain Scale here for you. I'm not collecting this. It's simply just for you to look at. It goes along with the text chapter. You can rate like your latest pain experience, whatever the last time you were in pain. Was it a migraine? Did you twist your ankle? Did you burn your finger? Whatever your last pain experience was, go ahead and rate your pain. Take a look at the different ways in which pain is assessed. This is a very popular and widely used scale for measuring pain. You might often see it when you go to a doctor's office or an ER, things like that, where an accurate assessment can be gained from self-report, the patient self-report of pain. All right, and then your discussion for this week, again, goes along with longevity chapter, looking at, if you go back up here, I have the title here, Confidants, Networks, and the Power of Social Life. So it's all about social support. So we'll be looking at just the ways in which social support can bring about good experiences for the person, and the ways that it can be healthy to have systems of social support put in place, and why that's important, why it's needed. You'll look at the termites and see who had it and who didn't have social support and where did that lead them. So again, I want you using lots of examples of the termites. Try to integrate the best you can anything from the main chapter, Serafino and Smith. And I know I've been commenting on that in your posts, so I hope that you're reading those. Generally, people are doing really well in the posts. I did notice that some people still aren't responding regularly to 3 other people. You're losing a lot of points when you do that. So it's not very wise. You want to make sure that you're commenting on 3 other people's posts and you're doing a thorough job. Not just writing a couple sentences, but really trying to think of it as like elongating what someone else is saying. How can you add to it? How can you beef it up? How can you kind of tack on some of your own thoughts or experiences to make more out of it? That's what I'm looking for there. Okay, so that wraps up Module 10, and then the next podcast will go over Module 11.